hive stream number 4, I think we're up to. Another exciting one ahead. As you've just seen in the intro, we are definitely in the hunt as a collective anyway. Some schools have certainly, and colonies taken off, but yours won't be far behind. This is all happening. This is what happens in spring in beekeeper world. So yeah, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Okay, welcome to our Apiary Focus section. And today, if I can spin our earth around to the right part, we are going to be looking at our Gunnedah Apiary, which I have saved again as a project. So let's zoom into that section. What you'll find here is that we're in Midwestern New South Wales, which is a pretty unique kind of floral profile that adds to Project Humble. It's actually referred to, this area, as the koala capital of the world, which is not something that I was familiar with until I attended Gunnedah. I believe a while back there was a concerted effort of the town to plant a number of special eucalypt trees that present a bit of a haven for our friends. It's also pretty cool for bees because amidst all of these eucalypts, we are surrounded by huge sections of land or agriculture. So this area is also referred to the food bowl of New South Wales because there's so much growing that happens on these farms, harvesting and then production of grains and canola and lucerne and clover and different things that I guess kind of feeds our state and also feeds the nation. It's a bit of a double-edged sword though for bees because this type of farming presents benefits. It also poses unique challenges. While these crops are pollinator friendly, our apiary in Gunnedah, which is actually just a little bit out of Gunnedah, it's around this section here, presents a really good boom activity. And the bees thrive, they collect lots of nectar and pollinate crops, resulting in a win-win for both the farms and our hives. However, when the crops are rotated and the farmers are putting in less attractive produce for our bees, they face times of scarcity in resources and have to adjust their patterns and often slow down their activities. But as we mentioned before, there are a variety of native eucalypts and I guess non-native floral diversity on offer in town and also around these sections of national parks, which is cool. So right now there's a huge canola bloom out there. So you might be able to see them here from the satellite. These are the sections of land that are coloured yellow because it's a vibrant yellow blossom that not only provides a visual treat but also a rich source of nectar, and the current canola crop has led to a noticeable uptick in hive activity, which you'll also see reflected in our leaderboard. While the canola is present, there's a bounty on for the bees and they're no strangers to this. They take full advantage of it. What we've learned is that when these crops taper off, the bees then have to adapt, and they're very good at doing that, which is great. The honey produced out at Gunnedah is unlike any other, especially during the canola bloom. It's a testament to the region's rich biodiversity with subtle hints of native flowers and a smooth texture. It's a favourite among the connoisseurs of Project Humble and the schools that are actually getting to taste it right now, which is pretty special. So I really love visiting our Gunnedah Apiary. It really makes me feel quite small because as I'm driving out through these farmlands, it's hard to kind of see the edges of these places, and for me that's quite humbling in regards to I guess how big our beautiful country is and how much these farmers are able to produce on their patches of land. Yeah, so I hope you've enjoyed our little intro into our Gunnedah Apiary, and you might understand a little bit more when we look at the leaderboard as to why at the moment the hives out at this apiary are doing really, really well. Hi everyone, you guys already know who I am, Ben the Beekeeper. So this section is just a little bit more information about me and my journey into beekeeping and how I became, I guess, Ben the Bee Man. So let's unpack it a little bit today and hopefully you can learn a little bit more about who I am and why I'm doing this amazing thing that is called Project Humble. So look, I am first and foremost a father of two, a husband to a beautiful wife called Julia, and we live in a beautiful part of the world which is known as a garden suburb. It's Lawn. And when we first moved into Lawn, the very first thing that my wife was very keen to get her hands into was to build our own veggie patch. I don't know if you've had the chance to do that at home. Maybe you don't have enough space in your backyard, but if you do, or you have at school even, you'll understand that it's a little bit of work to get that going. So we spent a lot of work one season making our own veggie patch, and then the produce just didn't come. We did all the things right in terms of the soil, we did our testing, we did our mixing, we made sure that the levels were right, and we did the planning. Everything looked to be going really well, but there was one part of the process that we were missed out on, and that was the pollination part. So once, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, I'm a bit of a nerd. So when I did my research around pollination and the important part it plays in obviously creating produce that you can serve on the table and getting rewards for your efforts in your garden, I looked to solve that problem. So the obvious and easiest solution was for me, to put a beehive in our backyard. Now that's easy in theory, but as you guys are understanding through this project, it's quite a lot of steps that need to happen to do it well anyway. So we started with one beehive, and to be honest, I enjoyed it way more, well, probably as much as, and probably a little bit more than the gardening aspect. So that became my thing. And then we were lucky enough to welcome a couple of kids into our life. Frankie, who is my eldest, and Bertie, or Albert, who is my youngest, both of which have curious minds and just love learning and doing. So it wasn't long before my beekeeping practices, I had a couple of tag-alongs. And for me, that was game-changing. I just loved sharing that experience of beekeeping with my boys. And I tried to reproduce that on, I guess, a bigger scale with Project Tumble. First and foremost, I am a teacher. I'm also a school principal. And taking that love of learning, not just about bees, but the love of learning to schools is, I guess, my underarching passion and drive. And when you add in bees, which are just like the most cool creatures that we know a lot about, but have so many questions that are unanswered. They're the most studied insect in the world, yet there are so many questions that despite all the reading and all the experience, remain unanswered. And that is just the most exciting aspect of beekeeping, is trying to uncover the unknown. So that, I guess, leads me into why I'm working with you on Project Tumble. I feel that there's something special in connecting students or learners, not just students, teachers, adults, with something that is an unknown, like bees, and fostering that love of learning, that curiosity, and bringing that story to the front of what we do each and every day. For me, bees were also the thing that slowed me down and gave me perspective and allowed me to enjoy what was going on around me. The drive to work was no longer getting to work, it was taking in what was in bloom, looking at the weather, understanding how that was going to impact nature and bees and the honey flow. And I'm just hoping that in a small way, perhaps Project Tumble is doing that for you too. So teacher, bee nerd, principal, beekeeper, all of those things are true about me. But if one thing comes across in this Beekeeper in Focus section, I just want to thank you and your schools and your teachers for allowing us to explore this world, this unknown world of insects and bees and nature, and bringing it into your classrooms. I hope in part that the team here at Project Tumble have done a good job in packaging it so that it's a nice package, and that your teachers enjoy teaching it and that you enjoy learning about it, because we love making it for you. So in this week's lesson focus, we're going to be looking at the stages of brood. We've talked about brood being baby bees, but a number of questions that I continue to get asked, this is my fault for not answering them, is what do I mean by a healthy colony? And to explain what a healthy colony is, I really need to unpack with you what I'm talking about when I'm seeing and lots of brood. So let's have a look at this. And what I want to do is I want to show you exactly what it is that makes brood. So brood of baby bees, and as you see from this image here or this graphic, we have the different stages of brood. We have the egg, which is laid by the queen. We have the larvae, which is kind of like where the egg hatches, and we have the beginning of the bee. It's actually in the form of like a grub, kind of like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. And then at this point, once it reaches a certain age, the nurse bees will put a lid on the cell and kind of turn it into a cocoon. So all of this is happening inside those hexagonal cells on the frames that we hold up. Once that lid's in, there's a big metamorphosis that happens, which is just a fancy word for change. So the bees change from a grub into a bee through the pupae stage, or pupa, and then 21 days after that egg has been laid, after it's gone through those phases of brood, an adult bee will emerge. Now, interesting fact, and something that you can look up, is that they are at different rates. So a female worker bee hatches in 21 days, but a queen hatches in a lot less time, and a male bee or a drone actually takes a little bit longer. I'll let you figure out the exact dates or the length of time, but if you're not able to find the answer, be sure to reach out, because we know it. I just want you to do a little bit of the sweat work. I have this really cool video that kind of is a time lapse of all of those phases. So I want to throw it to now.
Here is a bee egg as it hatches into a larva. Those newly hatched larvae swim around their cells, feeding on a liquid food that nurse bees secrete for them. Then their head and their legs start to differentiate as they transform
Whoa, I didn't mean to skip it to the next slide, but what I wanted to do was
into pupae.
pause it. Try again. This is all happening normally underneath the wax capping of the cell. So obviously for this video, the producer has removed that wax capping, and you're actually seeing a side-on view of the larvae turning into a pupa or going through the pupation stage. And I'll stop talking, but I just wanted to make sure that you understood that this was all happening inside like that cocoon that is the cell.
Here's that same pupation process seen from above with varroa mites running around in the cells. Next, the tissue reorganizes in their body and the pigment slowly develops in their eyes. In the last step, their skin shrivels up and they sprout hair.
Look, what an amazing video. I hope you enjoyed that. You can rewatch it if you want. It gets a little bit gross there, but that's life, right? So those phases is what we're talking about when we're looking at brood, turning into bees. And here, if I show you back down here on the camera, here is a photo that I've taken from one of our hives, and you can see all of those different phases. If I zoom in, we've got eggs here, we have the little baby larvae, and as we move around, we can see larger larvae. We don't have on this brood where it's going through that pupation phase. But when I'm holding up frames and I'm doing your colony inspections, I'm looking for evidence that we have eggs, we have larvae, we have capped brood, and then we've got emerging bees. And if I can see that, I know that your colony as a whole is doing really well. The amount of each of those phases gives me an idea of how well they're doing. If there are 6 frames of brood, what I'm looking for is 6 full frames of those different phases of baby bees, from eggs to larvae to pupa, through to capped brood. So when we're looking at the leaderboard and we're talking about the frames of brood score, the higher the score, the better, but it will maximize out because our boxes have only got 8 frames in them. The most you could obviously have is 8 frames, but it would be unusual to see a score of 8 frames because most colonies will dedicate the outside frames to being like food resources, pollen, nectar, honey, and then use the inside kind of 6 to 6.5 frames to raise baby bees, or at least during this part of the season in spring and summer. Yeah, hope you enjoyed that lesson section. I hope you've learned about the phases of brood. And as always, if there are any questions, be sure to reach out. Over to the next one.
Why do bees stay in the one spot?
Okay, so cool question to kick off our student section. I didn't quite catch your name, but I can see there you're from Hamilton North. So thank you for sending it in. Why do bees stay in the one spot? Because European honeybees need each other to survive. They are what we call a eusocial species, which means they need a number of others to sustain themselves. They can't do all the jobs that are required for those bees to live and to thrive without there being a large number of others. So if a bee was to move off and to start their own adventure, unfortunately, they wouldn't be able to survive for very long. But that's not the same for all bees. Some native bees are what we call solitary bees, and they're able to kind of go off and have their own adventure in different spots than when they, I guess, emerged as a baby bee. Not the same for European honeybees, and they're the ones that we use for our Project Humble.
Hi, my name is Sid, and from Hunter Valley Grammar School. My question is, how do you know if a hive is healthy or not?
Hey Sid, thanks for the question. Hopefully you've just watched the lesson section and we've been able to answer it, but I'll just do a very quick recap for you, Sid. Hives that are healthy have a number of features, and these are the things I look for as a beekeeper, and they're the things that you should be looking for when we do our colony check-in. A high number of bees, food plentiful, pollen plentiful, aka resources, but lots and lots of brood, a queen that is laying eggs, and all the different phases of brood. They're generally the things that we can tell if the colony is healthy. Colonies that are healthy do really well in terms of collecting nectar and honey. So that's the next part. Do we have all of the pieces that need to be present for that colony to thrive? A queen, phases of brood, lots of brood, food resources, pollen resources. If we've got that, then they're doing really well. Thanks for the question.
Hi, my name is Felix from Hunter Valley Grammar School. My question is, are there more female or male bees in a hive?
Oh, that's a good question. I love answering this. In short, there are way more girls in a beehive. And that's not to say boys don't do an important job. They do, or the drones, I guess is the technical term. But at any one time, around now, there are boys in most hives, but it's at a ratio of about 9 parts girl, 1 part boy. So 90% of the hive population, and you can do some maths here, if there's 50,000 bees in a colony, and 90% of them are female, and 10% of them are male. You can pause here and figure that out. I'll give you a little bit of thinking time. But you're looking at like 45,000 girls to only about 5,000 males. And that's a good sign. Some colonies in winter, or most colonies in winter, will actually kick out all the boys. So at that point, you've got 100% girl power. Why is that? Because the girls are the ones that do the majority of the tasks that are required inside that colony. They are the ones that collect the food. They are the ones that collect the nectar. They are the ones that turn it into honey. They are the ones that collect the pollen. They are the ones that build the wax. They are the ones that nurse the babies. They are the ones that clean the hive. They are the ones that get rid of the sick ones. They are the ones that clean the queen. They are the ones that lay the eggs, aka the queen. The boys do an important job, and I think I've covered some of this in the previous hive stream, but most of that job is done away from the hive. Their job is to spread the colony's genetics onto other bees. So they're looking for ways to do that. Great question, and hopefully I've answered it for you. We'll have time for one more question. Let's jump into it.
Hi, my name is Zane and I'm from Broke Public School, and my question is, how many bees die a year?
Hey Zane, how are you? A cool kind of take on a really interesting question. How many bees die a year? In any one colony, if there's 50,000 bees at that particular point in time, there's been a lot of deaths in terms of the bee landscape, and there will be a lot of deaths. Bees don't live entirely long lives. The queen will live anywhere between 2 and 3 years, maybe sometimes longer, maybe sometimes less. But the worker bees, so the female worker bees, will only live about 30 to 40 days after they've emerged in the height of summer, because the energy expenditure required, so the amount of activity they've got to do, really wears them down. those same bees through winter because there's not as much foraging and they eat different food heading into winter, much more fatty versions of the same types of food. They're able to live a little bit longer, but let's just say on average about a month, 40 days. If you do some maths, the queen's laying 2,000 eggs a day, and every 30, 40 days, you're going through a cycle of that brood. It's a huge amount. It's a huge amount of bees over the course of a year. Now, the majority of that happens outside the hive, so you don't actually see there being a lot of dead bees back in the hive. They generally expiring while foraging, and they're not returning. So, but that's part of nature, isn't it? So when they do die, they become a food source for other animals like ants and birds and grubs and things. So yeah, hopefully I've answered that question. Thanks for those ones. They were really great. As always, be sure to send them through. Next Hive stream, I'll be trying to answer just as many as well. Okay guys, just a very quick leaderboard update. So we're here on their website, we're going to head over to the bees, and I'm downloading a bunch of stuff and uploading, so my computer's a little slow. But here we are. As you can see, we have a new leader, but Queen Beyonce hasn't dropped too far down the leaderboard. What's interesting to note is that our apiary out at Gunnedah, the Apiary Focus, this hive stream, has really risen up the ranks, and it can turn around that quickly for any of our bees. So no matter where you are sitting on the leaderboard at the moment, once there is a strong honey flow, your colony can really capture what's going on and turn them into honey, which is kind of what you've seen at the beginning of the hive stream. Queen Mipperai from John Hunter Hospital has been able to do that, effectively grabbing about 5 kilos, a little bit over actually, of the sweet stuff, and potentially grabbing more at the moment. Ruby, the same. Beyonce, although she's at Byron Bay, we've been able to remove some frames as well. Beeth, from Hinton, 5 kilos. Now, cool to note, we've actually got a bit of varying apiaries as we head down. We've got Blue Mountains, we've got Kiama, so we've basically got them all covered. The one exception being Murrurundi, who hasn't had that early nectar flow yet, but hopefully that's just around the corner. In fact, I've been out there since this update, and things are doing well. So watch this space carefully. Congratulations to Queen Mipperai, and keep an eye on here. If you want to see exactly what their colony looks like in comparison to yours, there's nothing from stopping you from clicking on the Queen down here, and then I guess kind of checking in on their colony check-ins as well. So look, feel free to do that. Good stuff. We'll head back to the next section. So, final section, the prize giveaway. This week, we're going to hand it to 2 students out from Cessnock West. They've actually sent through on their own volition, it's a fancy word for saying without being asked, a resource that I'm about to press play on to finish our hive stream today. A really cool PowerPoint full of interesting bee facts, and also some cool transitions and some good music. And don't worry, I think you're going to enjoy it. Well done, girls. Charlotte and I think it was Lexi. I better double check that. But super proud of what you've done. Thanks for joining us this hive stream. Get back to class and enjoy the rest of the day. Bye for now.
Here's a little song I wrote. You might want to sing it note for note. Don't worry, be happy. In every life we have some trouble, but when you worry you make it double. Don't worry, be happy. Don't worry, be happy now. worry. Be happy. Don't worry, be happy. Don't worry. Be happy. Don't worry, be happy. Ain't got no place to lay your head. Somebody came and took your bed. Don't worry.